Hi. When I'm going through some new things, some long time habits or activities or things that I've done for over the span of years start to wane or change, I always think it's a topic worthy of sharing because some of you at some point might question this. And one such change that I've noticed is about teachers, okay? I've always had only a handful of people that resonated with me. Paramahamsa Yogananda started out with, and he was with me for 20 years of Hindu study. And then I read a lot of a lot of things from Dogen, the Zen. I read the sutras. I particularly like the sixth patriarch, the Chinese sixth patriarch in Chan, which is Chinese for Zen. Wei Ning platforms. He did some really interesting, and Wei Ning remains to be but he was illiterate. That means he didn't read or write, and he came from a real poor agricultural background. And at the time, there was pretty much the same bias that persists. That an educated pundit is better than what we would consider not educated. But Wei Ning, Dogen, T.D. Suzuki, to some extent Alan Watts, a lot of the Zen people. And then in between there was, while I was in my Hindu phase, I was part of Baba Muktananda's group, where I received Shaktipat. I went for an intensive, very interested in, because of friends and because of the fellowship and because I like the way that they separated the men and the women. I like the dynamics of the teaching, women and men, and they chant back and forth to each other. Kind of an interesting dynamic. But then pretty much after Baba passed, and I didn't even get involved in Santa Monica at one of Muktananda's ashrams, where I received Shaktipat. The symbolic opening of the third eye. But he was already passed, so I never saw him in the flesh. But that's a different one. Whatever name was, he left a son and a brother and sister in charge. Anyway, that's a whole nother. But I just kind of lost interest, like I will in a group. I'm just not a group kind of guy. And then after Zen, when I finally gave up on seeking to what I call clarity by clearing, by taming, by calming, by quieting, and with silencing my mind, which I gave up in Zen. Then then I reached out and looked for some other teachers that kind of resonated with me. But this kind of overlapped when I first saw Adya Shanti in Hawaii in probably 1993 or 1994 at the University of Hawaii at the East-West Center in Lincoln Hall, or across. Actually, it was across. It wasn't in Lincoln Hall. It was in the East-West Center proper. But he'd only been, at that point, he'd only had his group together for less than a year. And he declared himself awakened, which was really interesting for me. He shared his awakening experience with us early on. And he's since grown in stature and grown in age and has a partner. And at some point, this is the thing. At some point, most teachers, I hate to say monetize, but essentially that's what they start doing. Either start charging for their information or seek to establish some kind of group that will support them. And nothing's wrong with that. Believe me. Oh, there's my kitty. Believe me, nothing's wrong with being supported. But I think we need to trust, and I've wrestled with my idea in this, and I started to understand that anybody that wanted something from you, be it money or seva, activity in the ashram, instead of giving, if they start wanting, they want a bigger group, they want to influence more people, they want to bring in money, they want to build a bigger temple, build a bigger space. I start to lose interest. And so the three that stayed with me for quite a while was Thich Nhat Hanh, the Plum Village, the Vietnamese monk. And even though he established different groups, the main group I think being somewhere in France, and he has places all around the world, but somehow, maybe because he was an ordained monk and he stayed within his order, and he seemed that not to try to monetize, not to try to grow a group with seeking more influence. And a newcomer to the group was the last 4 or 5 years that I've read a lot of his stuff and really like him because he's an intellectual and he's quite a wise man. And I'm talking about, what's his name? There it goes. When I need to know it, I'll know it. Sadhguru, but he's got a big, huge place, and you can take online classes. And both Adyashanti and him are doing everything online because, like all of us, they're facing the reality of COVID, and travel is off, and gathering is off, and especially meditating in close quarters. Can you imagine the potential to pass the virus? Anyway. The two big people in my life that were teachers that I've been less and less interested in hearing what they have to say. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm not disparaging them. In fact, I recommend them highly, all three of them, highly to anybody that wants to hear words of wisdom. Because a lot of it's free on the internet. There's a lot available for free. And Sadhguru in particular has done a lot of good things, I think, planting trees, promoting his country, India. But somehow the size of the group or my interpretation of monetizing, offering you opportunities to come to this, for a certain amount of bucks, you can go to this place or that place and be graced with their presence. Yeah, and I'm not saying that's not a bad thing. But with my own struggle with this is, I live on a very, very modest Social Security retirement. very, very little money coming in. And of course I've thought about, I've been at this for a long time and sharing in these YouTube videos, but I haven't experienced what most YouTubers would call success, you know. Less than 30 followers after almost 4 years. And you know, my wife watches people that play games online with millions of viewers, millions, and they can monetize and they can make some money. And she's always asked me, you know, she's quite a YouTuber herself. She's very high-tech savvy. She depends on it for her livelihood. She sits at a computer most of her life and just wonders why sometimes she feels poor, although I never feel poor. So this question about money, well, I've always gotten by, and I've always had faith that I will get by, and I continue to have faith that I will get by, and it's not something that I would plan and scheme of how to make money doing this. It's possible people do it. That German guy, Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, I'm not sure which, sorry, whatever it is. I'm sure he has a lot of good things to say, but I find him kind of recycled. I know, understand he's a multimillionaire, as is Siddhartha. And I don't know about Adyashanti, but I don't think he's going to go to the poorhouse soon. He's certainly not on the scale, probably, of monetizing that Tolle, Eckhart Tolle, I believe is correct. But be here now, and you know, he just wasn't my teacher. That's all. That's why this is called teacher with a question mark, because I want to talk about how you find your teacher, and you don't. Essentially, that's it. You can try, with emphasis on try, but when you're ready, the teacher will appear. That's an old adage, and I subscribe to that 100%. I never had a teacher, a fleshly teacher, until I was probably 63, and that's 10 years ago. And I was with him for 4 or 5 years. But he didn't speak English. He only spoke Mandarin. So I don't know how much teaching was going on, but there was a lot by example and a lot to watch. And he had a couple 100,000. He was very successful, a micromanager, very, very successful guru, teacher. He made a lot of money, had a lot of followers, and pretty $30 to $60 a month from, at the top, 200,000, probably averaged about 100,000 people. Well, you do the math. $30 to $60 from almost everybody monthly. And last I heard, he had a couple fancy Bentleys. He had a couple of Bentleys, and I think he had an odd Rolls Royce, and he had a Jag, and you know, he started needing to. I think you know, a lot of the gurus do this not only for self-interest, but to attract more people. If you can demonstrate that you're doing quite well, versus me saying, "Hey, I live on a very limited income, and that's it." Now, if you were seeking prosperity, if you were seeking to learn more about the laws of abundance, which I subscribe to, it's possible to accumulate money. It just never interests me. It seems to be the antithesis of everything that's leading me to want to share. I think the moment that I would be interested in accumulating money is the moment that I go off on a retreat and spend quite a lot of time with scrutiny, self-examination, because it's not going to happen. It hasn't happened yet, and there's no threat on the horizon. I don't see anybody waiting to give me their money. What they call it in the Middle Ages, when patrons. I still think it might not be too bad to have a nice patron, somebody who support me in my work. That'd be nice. Depending on who they were and the spirit was in which, and their expectations, in which they, if they just wanted to help me to do what I want to do, well, that's welcome. Patrons, anyone? So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not going to monetize what I'm doing through my own efforts. I'm not going to design. I'm not going to seek. Money, particularly from followers, people that are my people, that my message, me, my vibration, my personality resonates with them, is helpful. So that means that the two teachers that I listened to in the last 10 years, were my own personal teacher who spoke Mandarin, so I listened to Mandarin. But he lived it, so I could learn, and he helped me on the last few steps until his job was done. When the master, your spiritual guide, helps you, and I can go into the mechanics of that someday. I probably haven't done that. It might be of interest. What I saw him do to prepare me, but basically it was take me to the precipice, say jump when he thought I was ready, say jump, and turn around and walk away nonchalantly, turn his back on me, and it was symbolic. All this didn't, and I leaped, okay? But that was the symbolic end to his role. He had taken me as far, and we both were aware of that without words. And he helped set up the conditions, the vibration. That's critical. I'm sure many have done it without the help of a teacher, but I think it's a primary. That's when he's proving his salt, right? Proving his worth is when he can help set up the frequencies that are conducive to the work that you're doing as an individual to awaken. So, Sadhguru, Ajahn Shanti, Ajahn, they're doing great work, but I almost never listen to them, especially speaking. And I listen to Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't listen to him. I read, because my resource is online. And there's people, Quora, which is a forum that I like. Quora, there's people that like Pausha, Foley, and there's a couple other names. If I scroll down, I might find them. Tijana or something, who are doing kind of free, interesting online kind of sharings, and I've liked what they've said. I'm not following anybody, but I, in my own little group, my Sages for Ages is one little group. I've been taken to sharing something that somebody else said. I found it on the internet, and something that resonated with what I'd been teaching, and I always gave them credit. The name was always there. So recently I do a lot of posting on our messenger, our group messenger, and I post a lot of things that other people have said, be it anonymous or particular teachers, who said essentially things that I've said throughout these videos. So that's where I am now as far as teachers. Teachers with a question mark. Necessary? Very helpful. I'm not in a position to say essential, but if your teacher, if you're ready, the teacher will find you. Or if you're ready, the teacher will come. The teacher will show up. And what I've realized in the last year has been, as my little modest group has at least kept its head above water, maybe accumulating a few people more additionally. I'm only looking for 10 to 15, an inner circle that I'll work with personally. And that's essentially what I've seen as my teaching mechanism, platform. And of course I look to none of them for any financials. And it's reciprocal. I'm asking people, number one, symbolically I'm the teacher, but each of us are dedicated, this is one of the conditions of joining the group, dedicated to helping each and every other person in the group towards their personal goal or their personal path towards awakening, to create synergistically a good environment that we can help each other without unnecessarily elevating myself to any kind of particular advanced state. But they're interested in what I want to share. Keep it very personal. So as I said, my own reactions to teachers, that's why the question mark, has been changing. Losing interest in the ones that seem to have seminars and different kind of self-help. Is more like a different category. That I don't think spirituality should be in the self-help category. Personally, I don't think you need to pay. And again, I'm in no position to question or challenge the people that do charge, do make money, because I see the necessity. Trust me, I can see both sides of it. But I've made my choice. So it's made the teachings of people that have established followers of less interest, and I'm more interested in other obscure people, which I consider myself very, very obscure. I've managed to remain obscure even after 4 years of putting out numerous YouTubes, numerous half-an-hour sharings. I'm aiming at 333 half-hour, 33-minute sharings, and right now I'm about 22 shy, so that puts me at what, 312? And then my YouTube career, at least in this particular format, will be finished. But for my group, I do a lot of pep talks, 3 or 4 or 5, well, more like 5 or 8 or 10-minute pep talks, answering specific questions they might have, updating them on what's going on with me, and it's all very interpersonal. It's as close as we can get to being in the flesh, with only the selected, the chosen ones, the selected, self-selected ones have access to our messenger group, our messenger platform. And I like the intimacy of it, and it's very appropriate, and I had to go through, I had to see that this was the way that things would progress for me, and have the inner, at least the inner protection circle that I could work with directly, people that I'm willing to work with directly, while having them help me keep others at a safe distance, and maybe introduce, and maybe there'll be a second circle and a third circle, just like my never-ending love with the idea of tossing a pebble in a body of water and watching the body of still water, and watch the rippling effects. This rippling effect is a natural phenomenon, and why not utilize it? Why not embrace it for any spiritual sharing that I might be blessed with? The responsibility, and that's something what I deemed worth sharing, and only because it's worked for me. So I don't know how. So when the students are ready, the teacher will come. And I saw the flip side of it too. When the teacher is ready, the students will come. And that's where I am. I'm ready. I've reached a certain level of maturity in my Buddhahood. More to go. I've realized, I've been given numbers about how truly rare the number of people that are willing to do what it takes, that are really focused, and that are really desirous, if that's the term, that you probably discard that, but sincerity. And while I was given specific formula that led me to the understanding that 7,800 Buddhas exist on this earthly plane right now. 7,800. But there's only 780,000 who are available, that will be trainable, that reaching awakening this lifetime is I wouldn't say probability, it still remains in the realm of possibility. So there's about 780,000 people to work with only, with 7,800 fully awakened beings, and most of them are not committed to teaching. I think I don't know how many of them I have to meditate on that. If it's important, I'll know. So we're not talking about a massive group to work with. So this intimate, the Buddhists in the past have always had 10, 12 followers. People who would really devote themselves to their Buddha and follow him and actually travel with him and protect him and help him create the environment. And there was no big temple, no grandiose gathering. The Buddha was always a mendicant. He would move and spread his teachings that way. Well, the modern day, the internet is our modern day. Wandering through the forest to village to share. And that remains to be seen. I'm not sure. I'm certainly open to the idea, but who knows what the new normal's going to be. Right now, I see a mask wearing a mask outside for a long time to come. But anyway, that's what I have to say about teachers. Are they necessary? Well, let's just say they're useful. I won't go so far as saying that you have to have a teacher, because many people have done this on their own. But I believe that they were prepared in previous lifetimes, where that contribution to a guru, a master, a teacher, a sensei, a sifu, were really helpful, and that they were vibrationally, they were helped to prepare themselves for that leap of faith. For that leap. Jump, just jump. And then the teacher's job is done. And although always it's up to you, a teacher can only be somebody who can point the way and share their experiences. So that just leaves me with Thich Nhat Hanh. And I just love the simple little, I love something less than 2 or 3, 4 sentences. And my teachings will become more and more of just these, what we would call sound bites, I guess. Just short and sweet and succinct. And that's what I like about what I see of his. Once it gets to be a paragraph, I'm lost. Lose interest.